First on the agenda, we will have the approval of the December 13th, 2012 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Nothing? Okay. All in favor? Okay. All right. Next. I'm going to turn it over to Eric to administer the election process of our chairman.
Well, every year we do this with our two committees in terms of the committee itself deciding who's going to chair and be vice chair. And so we open that up for you now that we're in the new year in terms of how you want to handle that, how you'd want to nominate one of your members to serve as chair and vice chair.
I nominate Pearl.
I'm certainly not going to get in the way of that.
Well, with that big...
That sounded like a second to me.
All right, sound like a second?
Okay, I guess the vote within the committee in terms of the nomination of Pearl Bransford for chair of CSC.
Aye.
Yes.
Congratulations,
All
Madam
right,
Chair.
and thank you for that overwhelming support, guys. Okay, next agenda item is...
You may want to ask about the vice chair now. You're the chair.
Well, excuse me, all righty. Okay, I will open up the nomination for vice chair of the CIP committee.
Clyde's not here.
Clyde?
I think Clyde's excellent.
All right, I will second that.
For not coming.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Mr. Clyde Barnhill will be our vice chair for 2013. Someone give him that message.
Yep.
Okay, now we will proceed with our,
He'll get it off Twitter.
okay, Thursday, January 10th, 2013 agenda. Item number 3, the consideration of ordinance 2013-04, an ordinance to establish a no parking zone on the southeast side of Bridge Street from 2nd Avenue North to a point 140 feet east of the intersection.
We have had numerous complaints. A lot of staff has commented concerning sight distance and being able to see oncoming traffic when you're trying to pull off of, out of 2nd Avenue crossing Bridge Street at this intersection. It has a lot to do with we have a lot of parking now along where they just constructed or just built or put in that coffee shop. And that's what has brought this about. Carl and Paul went through and looked at this and looking at what would be an appropriate distance to get a sight distance where you can see at that stop sign, and that's what's being proposed. The owners of the coffee shop were notified that this was going to be discussed tonight.
And Paul's discussed it with them, I believe.
Yeah, I've discussed it with the property owner. He said that he'd put it down more for stabilization, didn't intend for vehicles to park on it, and was in favor or had no major objections to the no parking signs
He
being
does have
placed.
some parking in the back, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
What is that little white house sitting in the middle of the road?
That's a car.
All righty.
That white thing in the middle of the road? Car.
Doesn't look like a car, it looks like a house.
Any other comments for Mr. Parker? Do I have a motion that we can go ahead and move
I
this
move that we
forward?
recommend this to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Second.
All right, then properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Item number 4, discussion concerning the projects to be submitted as the city 2014 Transportation Improvement Program, better known as the TIP application. Mr. Parker.
This is something that we periodically are asked to do. We have submitted the projects as listed in the table. I handed out before the meeting the map that we actually met with TDOT last week and discussed this some with them to get their concurrence and support for what we're asking to do. The main issue with this is we're going forward trying to push up the the improvements, the widening of the Mac Hatcher from 96 of the southeast section of Quadrant, but we're more concerned with 96 through Lewisburg Pike, and then doing some improvements also Lewisburg Pike. We've been told by MPO that we need to have all of that quadrant because that's the way it's been set up before. We're still going to push for splitting it up. And in talking with TDOT, the chief engineer indicated that he didn't see a reason why it shouldn't be split himself, because that's the majority of the traffic problems is from 96 down through Lewisburg Pike and turning on Lewisburg Pike. So that's the main issues in this is, but this is what we typically have to make periodic submissions and try to get things moved around based on traffic situations and things like that. So
We haven't always brought this to the committee to bring to your attention, and staff suggested we do this to give you an opportunity to see the major projects that we're trying to put into the MPO and the Transportation Improvement Program process. Kevin Comstock, who's up here at the table, works very closely with MPO and the Technical Advisory Committee in terms of identifying and evaluating projects, and really represents us very well. I'd like to give Kevin a chance to just talk a little bit about the process and where we go from here.
Well, the process is pretty simple. There's two documents. The first one is called the Long Range Transportation Plan. Each of the projects, as we submit them, has to be on that plan initially. At some point, when funding becomes available, we can get them moved to a TIP. Now, the TIPs typically work 3 years at a time, and this is the next TIP, 2014 to 2017. Projects that we feel are important to us, we want to promote those, so we take them to the MPO and present them to potentially get funded. If there's enough money at the end of the day, then those projects get funded if they rate high enough in the MPO's matrix system.
the other thing I would point out on this too, before I forget, is we're presenting these with a 80-20 match, as the city of Franklin would do a 20% match. That's that gets us in a better position as far as getting funded. So we've done it in that regard. And this is us making the presentation. Until it's done, that us saying we're going to spend that money is not done until you actually do a vote or something concerning a project. But that's the way we are presenting it, because you just won't get anywhere if you're trying to go for 100%. So.
Is this going to be entered as a priority on our priority list?
If this gets the funding, we would bring it back to try to obtain funding and see if the board was interested in pursuing one of these opportunities at that 80-20 match. It would actually be, it's a separate process from your all's prioritization, but we use your prioritization to help make these submissions to try to make the two match up funding-wise.
Would this mean that we would do just this and not some other things that we have in mind?
Not necessarily.
No.
I do
What
not-
this
I
is,
do
what
not
this
want
is
to
looking at
locate.
projects that we could possibly get some federal, state funding for.
Roads
There-
that are on the road network, the federal roadway network, can be funded, get improvements based on being on that network. These roads represent that. Not every road in Franklin is on that list. So you have some projects.
So there is some overlap in your capital project menu, but these are the ones specifically that have the opportunity to access federal dollars, which is a huge leverage opportunity for us. For 20% of the funding, we can get these projects delivered and funded through the MPO process. So
Everything?
these are the ones, the high priority ones that are eligible,
These
is
are
what
the
we've
high priority
identified.
ones that are eligible right
The McEwen Drive Phase 4 is on here because it is a regional facility, and we felt that we needed to have this just in case. If you recall, we did get local interstate connector funding for what we've done up to now. So we've got it here just in case. Of course, you'll notice we got it set up to be all 100% local funding at this point. But if we don't have it listed, then the opportunity of, in the future, if there's funds available, will not be there. So we got to list it,
Yeah,
or
it has to be there.
we think we need to list it and have it as a part of all this.
There's another reason for that too, and it's also because of the regional perspective that the MPO looks at. They want to know all the major roadways that
Right.
we're going to be considering, because it'll play into how the overall regional network operates. So include things like McEwen would be important to that, because it's going to be a big connector between the east side and the interstate.
Yeah, from a county standpoint, it's the major east-west connector in that region, and it goes beyond Franklin's limits to serve that role. So that's the purpose, to highlight it here in that regard too, and it gives us a potential opportunity down the line, even though it may not be quite as clearly a federal project as some of the other ones.
Well, this is fine with me, except I do not want to just say, well, it's going to be this, and then we're going to not do anything else, because I'm going to fight for Franklin Road. We've got to have it, with the sidewalk.
There's, within the MPO, there's different horizon years of when certain projects were kind of scoped out. And these projects fall within the 2015 horizon year. There's another horizon year in 2026. We have some more projects that are out to that point. Mac Hatcher Southeast widening was one of those that we've asked to move up. And I mean, we can make an amendment to move up any project, but it also has to go into the mix for fair consideration with all the other projects the MPO is going to fund before it's considered. So we may prioritize it, but it may not get funding because it doesn't rate high enough in the system. So, but we can do it.
Any other discussion? Okay. Alderman Peterson?
So what's the next step with this?
Basically, this is just for information. It's required of us to submit the list every 3 years. MPO will advertise this list. Public will get to comment on it. We'll have to kind of figure out which ones get funding and which ones won't, based on the needs and how they affect the overall regional network. And after that, we'll probably get a contract with TDOT if any of these are accepted to, and that's when we start talking to you about what funding options we have available and how to fund it.
So like, in order to win, like playing the lottery, we have to play, we have to list it in order to have a possibility of getting something.
Exactly.
Okay. Alderman Peterson?
Are we submitting these with the same priority from the city of Franklin? In other words, are they just all thrown in as 8 equally important priorities to us?
They are implemented into the system as 8 equally prioritized projects. Once they're in the system, then we can ask for certain projects to be prioritized higher than others. We indicate what our preference is
So when do we,
after this list is accepted and published as part of it.
okay, I think that would be very important because I can see some of these that seem to me to be a lot more important than others. So, as I say, I think that, I see what you're talking about in that these are the ones that have the possibilities to
There's an additional 2 projects on the back sheet, the Franklin ITS extension and the Franklin Greenway, that we already have, they're projects that are already funded, and this mechanism allows us to carry over the funding into the new TIP. So they're there for that reason.
They're already funded.
there are, yes. We haven't gotten the money from them.
Right.
And but anyway, we have the commitment. Would you say that? We have the
Yes.
commitment to them. Thank you.
Any other? No action on this?
No action, this is informational. We'll come back to you as the process continues.
Okay, what, Alderman Parker?
With the McEwen that's listed, how does that play into Wilson Pike with the MPO? Because Wilson Pike being a state route, and I don't even know where Wilson Pike is on their list anymore because it used to be like year 2025, 2026. Oh, good.
It's,
Move back.
It's either there or beyond.
So, yeah, and So they're not really addressing Wilson Pike, are they?
Until TDOT, if it's a TDOT roadway, it's their jurisdiction.
Right.
Or Williamson County can ask to resolve it too. So,
There's,
I might.
up to this
I'll talk
point,
to
there's
the
been no
commissioners about that.
pushing of Wilson Pike as far as getting anything done, other than back in the mid-90s, we actually had an APR done, Advanced Planning Report done.
Yeah.
And once that was done, and I know you've seen it because we talked about it before, but once that was done and actually approved as what the functionals would all be, there was no entity stepping forward to push it
Yeah.
as far as doing the improvements for it. And as you'll recall, the city of Franklin's portion of Wilson Pike is very small compared to
very
to
small.
Brentwood's and/or the county.
Counties.
And the county has not pushed it at all.
Well, it's about
So-
time that the county stepped up to the plate and started doing that, because they have had the school put in over there, and they've been chit-chatting to me about all the stuff on Wilson and when are we going to get that intersection done constantly, but yet they're not speaking to the state about Wilson, so that's a really good point. I'm glad to hear that.
Well, I
We need
think a lot of that
we need
has to
talk
do
our
with the fact
commissioners
that
about
just
that.
about all of that Wilson Pike is within our urban growth boundary.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not, not all of it, but a good portion, and they're just not pushing it.
Because you think it's of the UGB?
I believe probably portion of it, yeah.
Well,
And they've
Yeah.
got other areas that they think are more important.
yeah, and the Mays Creek Basin, aren't we doing a study on that right now?
Yes.
So we don't know. I know Dana said something about years ago, we should be annexing anything east of Wilson, and I totally agree
I
with.
said we should not.
Yeah, right, that
Okay.
you should not, and I
don't want to
totally.
be unclear about that.
No, but you should not, you supported not annexing anything east.
Well, I inherited everything.
And then Breezeway got annexed in before I got in.
Breezeway,
And then
that area's been annexed since the
2004, I think,
middle 80s.
wasn't, well,
Oh, yeah, that was back when Jeff Bethurham was mayor.
but that one section, wasn't that annexed in right before they built?
What,
Yeah.
Breezeway?
Yeah, wasn't
No,
it?
that, east
There's
of
that
Wilson
one
Pike
cutout.
over there was
There's
done
that
back
one
in the
cutout.
80s when Jeff Bethurham was
But
mayor.
anyway,
It was to stop Brentwood from
but
coming
I
in,
totally
so-
agree with Dana. I don't know what we were doing, trying to annex anything east of that, especially with the Mays Creek Basin and all that issues, so, okay,
All right.
thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other discussion? The next item, consideration of a professional service agreement with Barge, Wagner, Sumner, and Cannon, Inc., contract number 2012-0205 for the 11th Avenue South Water and Sewer Project. Mr. Parker.
We have water lines, water mains and sewer mains in 11th Avenue and coming off of 11th Avenue that need to be upgraded and fixed, and that's what this is for. But then also we have the 11th Avenue street itself between West Main and Natchez Street that is, I know everybody's heard a lot about, but as a part of that, we're going to go in and do a design to get the sidewalks, drainage, proper drainage and sidewalks along that stretch of roadway. And so that's what this is for, is to get a design for what that would all encompass. As you see the breakdown, the majority of the work is water sewer work. Once we get the design, we would be coming back looking at how we might fund, if we fund all the work, et cetera. But the majority of it is actually cost-wise is the water and sewer work.
And this is infrastructure improvement, this is no beautification.
Well, I would imagine that we would do a little bit of beautification as
Good.
far as we do the street work, assuming we go forward with all the sidewalk, and the street work and all that. Yeah, I don't see that we won't do something, but it will not be a streetscape project. Set the right
Comments?
set.
And right now, there's about a 450-foot gap of sidewalk while they're out there surveying, looking at the water sewer. We thought it made sense just to add that bit of sidewalk in there to see if funding is available, if we can get that sidewalk connection
You're gonna do
completed.
both sides?
Do both sides.
Where are you gonna get the land to do it? Isn't it all street?
We would basically be
into
right
the-
up against the street.
There's a house on the, go ahead.
I mean, I just wondered, are you gonna have to take some land?
There's a possibility that the survey, when they survey it, we'll be able to determine whether we're impacting right away or not. And we can look at the feasibility of it, but the sidewalk would essentially be right up against the roadway.
I had a question about where we're going to widen through there, and could it possibly be similar to what we did on 9th Avenue next to the police building?
The thoughts are not that we're going to widen particularly, but as we're going through the design, we will be looking at various aspects and alternatives of what we can and cannot do. We want to keep this as minimum cost as possible, so we don't want to buy right away. That's not decided for sure, but right now the thoughts are we probably will not really widen. We'll just make it a better roadway, et cetera. So.
Well, then, in our transportation plan, don't we have that road as a connector? Or
Collector,
whatever,
for all practical speaking, all the roads in the downtown area are listed as collector roads, yes.
Well, that road is pitifully narrow for us to consider that to be a traffic mover for a collector. And anything we can do to give more space and to also delineate parking areas, I think would be well worth it.
But again, what we have to look at is more of a complete street type design, in that we don't want to widen, and then we have the situation that we discussed the other night concerning speeding and all that too. So we have to look at all that, and that will be looked at as we do the designing of it.
You've got a built environment there that you've got to work with, so there's some pretty significant limitations just because of the homes, et cetera, that are already there, and that'll be part of what we look at. It is primarily a water and sewer project, but while we're doing it, we wanted to do what we could to improve the street and provide connectivity with the sidewalk. If there are opportunities to make it functional, a little better, that's something we can look at as we go, and that may be an option to look at, but there's probably not a lot of right-of-way to add to the formula here just because of what's already there.
I mean, even if we added, a number of feet just on each side, you're going to give that more viability as far as the traffic that we expect for it to move through.
Yeah, it's always going to be a two-lane road, I think. I don't think there's any question of
I
that.
agree. Yes.
So.
Any other comments? Can I get a motion?
Move that we recommend approval of the board.
All in favor? Aye. Yes. Item number 6, consideration of a professional service agreement, contract number 2012-0187 with Sullivan Engineering, Inc. for limited construction administration for Phase 1 of the Hillsborough Road Improvement Project at a not-to-succeed cost of $38,900.
Not yet. Yeah, your SSR come up.
$48. Did I say that right?
It's 3 different items. As we discuss this, I'm going to discuss what we're doing as for items 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
We have 3 different items because there's 3 different contracts, and then, of course, Ms. Martin will have.
We've got all
will
the
be
conflict on 8.
Yeah. Herself for 8.
So number 8, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and, should I read all 3 or just want to?
I would just, I don't think you need to at the moment. You can
Okay.
read them because there are different amounts.
Okay.
But what they're for is all for the same reason,
Your discussion would
basically.
be, okay.
Yes. What this is, of course, to let you know, we do already have a contract with Gresham Smith for CEI, which is Construction, Engineering, and Inspection for the roadway work. We have these 3 firms that have done the design for the project, And we're needing to get some limited construction administration, which is looking at shop drawings, is looking at, should we have a change in what they have designed? We need them to be looking at that, doing that change. They'll be working in conjunction with our CEI firm as far as those issues go. The CEI firm will be during the construction, overseeing the construction and stuff like that. So that's the reason we have these three different agreements coming to you right now for. And then the first one that we're looking at is with Sullivan Engineering, who has done the roadway design, the drainage design, et cetera. So, and theirs is a not to exceed of $38,948.
I move we recommend this to the board.
Second.
All right, we heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? All right. Okay, the next, item number 7, consideration of a professional service agreement, contract number 2012-0188 with EG&G Inc. for limited construction administration for Phase 1 of the Hillsborough Road Improvement Project at a not-to-succeed cost of $54,100.
And what EG&G is, excuse me, was responsible for as far as design was the streetscape elements and also the electrical. So the subcontractor under them is the one that did the electrical work. So that's what they would be looking at.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, okay. Any opposed? None. Ms. Margaret will excuse herself. Item 8.
You really only have 2 to vote, so if you want
Consideration
us
of
to just
professional
move
service
on.
agreement, contract number 2012-0189 with Smith, Seckman and Reed, Inc. for limited construction administration for Phase 1 of the Hillsborough Road Improvement Project, not to succeed, cost of $10,000.
And what their design was for the water and the sanitary sewer improvemements.
I have a motion.
I will move that we recommend that to the board.
I will second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Ayes have it. That takes care of that. Item 9, we will go into our street and water and stormwater projects reports, status reports. Number 9 talks about the street project status report. Any?
Just real quick, I want to mention that on the McCatcher Parkway Northwest Extension, Paul Hosen, myself, and Mr. Stuckey met with TDOT last Thursday to look at some of these, the issues that are out there with this particular project and to encourage them to pursue the placing of this project on the 3-year plan. The chief engineer that we met with, and then what is Scott Black's title? CE?
He's kind of chief of staff, I think.
Something, whatever he is,
Yeah.
anyway.
TDOT.
We're in
For
the meeting
TDOT,
with
yeah.
TDOT. They are going to pursue that. The other issue is the changes. There are changes that have been looked at as far as what needs to be done. We were working with our consultant, which is CDM Smith, to get together what may need to be changed and to look at what that cost may be. We indicated to TDOT, I guess pretty emphatically, that we did not expect to be paying any more money. They have indicated to us that they thought they could make sure that that reimbursement came from them. However, TDOT does not have a, what it's called, ongoing,
Standing contract, on-call contract.
on-call contract with CDM Smith for design work, so we will need to do some sort of amended contract with CDM Smith for it and be reimbursed by TDOT. We're working through those issues. We expect to have all this worked out by the end of next month. So I just wanted to report that we have done this. I know there's been a lot of issues or a lot of discussion concerning that. And one of the first things that needs to be done once we get this squared away of what has to happen, we have to at least get some sort of sketch design for the intersections of McCatcher and 96 West and McCatcher and Del Rio Pike as signalized intersections. There has been no sketch design or anything on that. All that's been shown is the roundabouts. And that's what some of the issues we're looking at. Then the other thing is, we told TDOT that we still insist that we want to have a public meeting prior to there being a final decision. That public meeting will be through the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, a public meeting through the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, either, I assume, a workshop or maybe even a special one. I'm not sure. We haven't discussed that much, but we have to get some things done before we do that. So, anything else am I missing?
No, just the idea that,
Summer, when you think this could possibly?
Well, if it gets in the 3-year plan, the earliest that any funding would be available would be October 1 of this year.
that would be very
Good.
soonest. I don't know that that's likely to happen, but the 3-year plan, that's when the funding range starts.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure when that timing would happen. We're trying to clean up anything from the contractual and design need standpoint, very short order, because we want to make sure that that's moving along and there are no barriers to it being considered for the next 3-year window. So that's what we're working on, and the fact that additional design costs would be covered by TDOT. We've had that discussion last week. I've had that discussion directly with Commissioner Schroer on that same issue, and the thing we've heard back every time is, we understand, you've spent your money, you spent what you were committed to, we designed what we were told to design, and now we're going to look at some modifications. We do want to bring it back to you publicly just because that design was delivered through a public process to begin with. We don't see it being a real involved, lengthy process, but want to do that. I don't know when that'll happen. It'll happen well before the fall, because it will need to clear those hurdles before then so that it can be fully considered for that 3-year plan.
But that does not mean that they will consider it within the 3-year plan, does it?
It just makes sure it's in the mix. We're trying to make sure there are no barriers or no reasons not to consider it. Yeah, so we want to make sure any design modifications happen well in advance of that decision so that there's no reason not to consider it. How it will compete with all the other priorities they're dealing with across the state is always going to be, that's what they look at.
And there's some biggies.
Yes.
There's some biggies. And, but I want to say, you remember when we voted last time to put the Long Lane on our priority list? You remember when we did that? And there was some discussion about if we put it on our list, that meant we had to do it. Remember that? Well, hadn't TDOT committed to us that leg?
We have an agreement with TDOT for it, yes.
So, I mean,
The funding is still up to
But
them.
it's still the funding issue.
well, tit for tat, if they're not gonna follow through with that leg of McCatcher when they've committed to do it at some point. Now, I'm not saying it's not gonna be done, but from what I hear from the state, it's not gonna be soon, because they've got all those things you mentioned, the other priorities that they have. There are some very important roads in the eastern part of the state that are where people are being killed, and they want to address that, and I understand that. But we still don't want to be left out.
Yeah, I don't think we can handicap our funding at this table today. It competes with these other projects. TDOT looks at congestion, economic development, and safety are their 3 pillars that they look at when they prioritize projects. And so it will compete with all the other projects. What we don't want to have is some issue related to design or other issues that prohibit it from getting full consideration. That's what we're trying to clear the decks on. The prioritization and allocation of funds from there is what they'll have to look at. There are some additional dollars coming with the new highway bill funding that may help us, because it may fund some other projects and then free up dollars for us. There's push and pull on this in terms of how you look at the priorities and how you look at all of it. So I don't know that we can say that it's in a better shape or worse shape in terms of how it will compete. We just want to eliminate anything that would hamper it from consideration.
Just to move down the list of other projects, if there are any questions, I'll just highlight some of them, just feel free to ask. Hillsborough Road from 96 to Independence Square, we recently just held the pre-construction or pre-coordination meeting, and we hope to have construction started towards the end of January.
Bid's been awarded.
In January.
Correct.
Awarded.
We're ready to start spray painting and bringing in Jersey barriers.
That's right.
You've approved a speed limit.
Yeah, speed limit.
Reduce the speed.
What was that, Ken?
Signed the contract
That's
last
right.
week.
Okay.
We got a picture of it, too.
That's from 96 to Independence.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. Next one,
Next.
Independence to Mac Hatcher.
Phase 2.
We're right now working with our consultants to update contracts to be able to finalize that design. And the plan associated with that is we're going to have to finish the first phase of Hillsborough before we start that second phase. So as that project is coming to a completion, our goal is to be bidding out that next
What is
phase.
the timeline for the phase 1?
It's 15-month construction schedule. So 15 months from now, our goal is to be bidding out that next phase to be able to start construction directly afterwards.
And then the next phase, the construction for phase 2 would be estimated at?
Cost or time frame?
Time frame.
It'd be 15 months from now, so it would be,
So 30 months.
How long does second phase take?
oh, okay,
If
I'm
you got
sorry.
15 months, what's the,
Yeah, it would probably be around another 15 months.
so
30 months, so that's, so by the time
2.5
my
years.
younger son is a senior at Franklin High, he was not born when I was elected.
Oh, wow.
So by the time he's a senior, he might be able to go to Franklin High with the Hillsborough Road improvements completed. Says wonders about my effectiveness. for
Your
road-
district, yes.
Gosh, I'm good at this.
Moving on to the next project, the McEwen Drive temporary connector. Construction crews have begun clearing, so they've started work out there. We're excited. We're shooting to try to have it open before the next school year starts. South Carruthers Parkway.
Open by September?
August.
Yeah, August. It would be August is our goal to be able to get that open. South Carruthers extension, now that we have funding, we're hoping to be able to bid in April and award sometime in May. And that would be a 2-year construction project, so we're moving forward with that.
that's a completion within 3 years, just if
2
you're
years, all right.
wondering. Yeah.
For intersection of Carlisle Lane, Boyd Mill, 96, the pre-construction meeting is scheduled for January this month. We're looking forward to getting started on that project as well.
Yes, we are.
For McEwen Drive, Wilson Pike intersection improvements, you don't see a whole lot of work going on out there other than utility relocation right now. We've been meeting with the contractor to get ready for the construction, but until some of this overhead electric is moved out of the way, which Middle Tennessee Electric is working on, we will not be able to start. We're hoping to find out more information as they work through this issue with CSX to hopefully start within the next 60 days, but we're continuing to meet with them and evaluate that as we move forward.
Just a comment.
Okay.
With the Board Mill Carlisle Lane, there is the likelihood that that work and 96 down at Hillsborough will be going on at the same time. So if you're coming into town, you could hit that traffic
Yes.
situation and then also come closer into Hillsborough and have that. So coming from West Haven, for instance, you have the likelihood of hitting to,
No, there's no likelihood.
you will. Okay, well, just want to make sure we're clear about that. And
Plan accordingly.
the speed limit is only for down near the Hillsborough Road.
The one you changed was
Yes,
just for the
okay.
Hillsborough project.
All right, just want to make sure that, and we want these things to be done, so that's not a problem for me, it's just that there
We
will be
also
some,
have to go through the Mac Hatcher Widening project.
there will be some pain.
That's true.
There will be some pain.
We do expect Carlisle to complete by summer, end of summer.
Yes.
So that's a shorter
Shorter,
timeframe
okay.
compared to Hillsborough, so.
All right. thank you.
Access road for Public Works facility, we're looking at starting construction sometime in February to get that project moving forward. And then highlight the last project, Eastern Flank Park Access Road. We're hoping to bring in January's next board meeting, bring a resolution to award to the second bidder. TDOT has made the decision that we are going to have to reject the low bidder Genco if we want to accept the funding from them. So we'll be bringing, they failed to fill out some paperwork associated with the bid, and it's considered a near,
This is the Eastern Flank
Eastern Flank
Battlefield.
Battlefield.
because certain paperwork was not filled out, it's their policy, it's federal guidelines to reject the bid. So we will be recommending rejection of Genco and recommending award to Civil
Next meeting?
Constructions.
That will actually be on the board meeting on the 22nd.
Okay.
It specifically, there was a bid bond form they were instructed to use that they did not use. This is federal money, federal highway money. They've walked through this, and really any irregularity is looked on very harshly. So we had to go to the next bidder, which was a
We don't
perfectly
have to
clean bid.
rebid.
It's about, I would rather we not rebid it, because even the second bid price is a price below what our engineer estimate had been, but it is $60,000 more than the low bidder. 60?
60,000.
A little over 60.
Yeah.
All right.
When do you think we'll get started with that road?
I guess if we award in January, we'll still have to have a pre-construction meeting with TDOT, so you're probably looking end of March, early April to be able to get started out there, because TDOT will require a lengthy notice. They'll have to be in attendance at the meeting, so, and it's, I
They
believe
should
it's
go
set up as
quickly.
6, 7 month project.
8-month contract, I believe. We might have reduced it down to 6. It's in between 6 and 8 months contract.
All right, any other things there? Item 10, Water Management Project Status Report.
Take any questions if there are any.
Let me just mention, while Paul mentioned the Public Works facility, which touches on our general fund public works, but also water and sewer, water management overall. We're looking to bid that facility project by the end of this month. So you'll really see not only the roadway, which will start in February, as Paul talked about, but we'll be looking to award the bid on the construction element, the facility part of it, probably February, March timeframe. So just stay tuned for that. That is moving forward in terms of what we need to do on the
Once
facility
it's
side there.
awarded, how long does it take to get them started?
Typically, you're looking at a month from award to the time you can actually get a contractor on site starting to do any work. They have, the way we set our contracts up, we give them 15 days after notice of award to have contracts, performance bonds, all that in place, ready to go, and then you have to start the process of meetings and going through the project. So it takes about a month.
So bottom line, I would say, I would project a year from now, we're able to be in that facility would be able to be used, inhabited by our fleet, water management, and streets functions. Mark, you have anything?
Oh, you up there?
No, just in case if there were any questions on the water.
Are there any questions on?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Of a blow up in the last door decoration.
Reclaimed water, how's that doing?
Pardon me?
Are we reclaiming a lot of water?
Not presently, but during this past summer, we had a lot of good high flows going out of our system. So, yeah, reclaimed water was doing very well this past summer.
Anybody else attached to it?
Not presently. We have a couple people who are going through some standard contracts right now, but there are not any new customers in the past 6 months that I can think of at this point.
Do you anticipate the new developments wanting the reclaimed water?
We're working with one right now, trying to get it squared away.
It's anticipated for Berry Farms to hook into
Right.
reclaim. So that's part of what we're working on.
Right.
Yep. All right, no other comments. Item 11, Stormwater Project Status Update.
Just give an update on Jackson Lake dredging project. The dredging contractor at this point is now demobilizing, which is a good sign. Their surveys have indicated that they've removed all the material that we were requiring them to remove. We will be going back to verify that with our own surveyor. And then early spring, our hopes are that the prime contractor will be finishing upgrading on the church's property to stabilize it and officially close this project out. And then I'll take questions if there are any on the other projects.
Move to adjourn. Motion, second?
Second.
So moved. Done. We adjourn.